Hey there! Welcome back to Collanomys channel to listen to another story of a successful solo business owner so that you could learn from the best and reach your business goals faster. I had an awesome call with business advisor Sandee Rodriquez, who has been an entrepreneur for 33 years. She got started with printing logos on t-shirts with her husband that grew into a promotional marketing agency, D&S Designs. Now she is helping entrepreneurs to grow their businesses with ease. In our talk, she emphasized on the importance of paying yourself first and getting to know how money works in your business. Keep on listening to learn more. Hello, Sandy. Nice to have you here. Thank you for being ready to share your business journey with us. So let's jump right in and talk a little bit about what is your business about.
So I actually have two businesses, but my primary business, D&S Designs, is a promotional marketing agency that started out in 1991 as a screen printing business because my husband is an artist and he wanted to do something with his art skills that would also pay the bills. So we got started with a little screen print shop set up in our basement and started printing t-shirts part-time. We did that for 5 years while he had a full-time job and I was still teaching school. And so, yes, I was a school teacher and he was an artist. So talk about going into business with absolutely no background or knowledge. That would
Yeah.
be us. And he changed jobs during those 5 years, and he was a contractor for a company that decided in December of that year that they could save money if they just fired all the contractors. So he lost his job. And we were at a pivotal point of, okay, and I finished teaching at that point because we had 2 kids that I was staying home to raise. So we had a moment of, do you go get another job or do we make the business go full time? And it was successfully, we were doing a lot of printing of t-shirts and sweatshirts and whatnot. And we decided, let's try it. Let's find out. And we haven't looked back ever since then. We've been full-time running D&S Designs, expanded it into embroidery and then promotional products and then websites. It just kept morphing, which is why we now say it's a promotional marketing agency, because all the different things that we can do for our clients. We help them with their social media, with their blogging, with any branded items that they want, with business advising, which is where Sandee Solves came from. Because after, I don't know, almost 30 years of D&S Designs, I wanted a little more out of life than just selling another printed widget. So I started taking some of my teaching skills into the business advising world and worked with a number of clients to help them achieve a variety of objectives, including one gal who wanted to go to Italy and not have her business fall apart while she was gone. She didn't know how to do that. So I showed her how to put all her structures in place, the operations manual, clear explanations of how things needed to be done so that her assistant could cover her while she was gone. And it worked. She went to Italy, and I think even more than that, for like 2 weeks, and came back and said, Sandee, business is thriving. And I got to walk away for 2 weeks. So that's very satisfying. I really enjoy the Sandee Solves business advising and would like to be doing more of it. It's slowed down a little bit because I stopped putting it out there as something available. Entrepreneurs tend to have lots of ideas, but we all still have the same 24 hours a day. And I needed to keep the other business going too. I describe it as spinning plates. So D&S Designs was spinning along just fine. That's why I started Sandee Solves, but then D&S Designs started to suffer a little bit. So I had to turn my attention back to it, which meant I didn't have as much time for Sandee Solves. So right now it just kind of sits on hiatus until I find some people who are a good match for some business advising, like my friend was that wanted to go to Italy. So that's kind of how we got started in business. And again, like I said, no background. Everything we know about running a business was learned on the fly as we went along, and taking training and talking to experts and being told, well, if you're going to do this, then if you're you need to know how to handle finances for one. Words like profit, what's that mean? You know, oh, it's money that's left over, right? You know, it's not. And I've learned that now.
What did you teach? Did you have any background in business then, or how did you get
None.
started?
I
None.
was a fourth grade school teacher.
Okay.
And actually, my very first business was I was a Tupperware lady.
Hmm.
So while I was still teaching school, I sold Tupperware. And that was my first introduction, really, in a strong way, to being an entrepreneur and running a business. And I loved it. I did extremely well. I was driving a van in 6 weeks. So, you know, that's an executive manager level. I recruited and was a manager in 3 weeks and driving a van as an executive manager in 6 weeks. So I loved it. It was fun. I started learning what it was like to run a business, and it carried a lot of that information over into DNS Designs once we started that.
Wow. And starting at 1991 and just coming from the background of your husband being an artist and you being a school teacher and Tupperware and everything. Wow, that's so cool. What was the journey like? What was the first product of DNS Designs, and how did you know that this is the product that we're gonna launch with?
So I was still teaching at the time and could see how many T-shirts were sold into schools.
Mhm.
So very quickly, I used my connections as a teacher with different schools to do clubs and sports and just spirit wear for local elementary schools, for my own high school, anywhere I had connections in the education market. And then I also pretty quickly got involved with the local Chamber of Commerce and met a lot more people that way, because, you know, 1991, we're talking back in the days where you would take an ad in the Yellow Pages phone book and you would have to go meet people in person. You know, it was a totally different selling experience. But I'm pretty outgoing. So I went out, met a lot of people, shook a lot of hands and said, we print T-shirts, we print sweatshirts. And then it was, and we can embroider and we can do promotional products. How can we help you promote your business? What can we do for you? And just going out and building relationships with people who were already buying these things, only now they were going to buy them from us because we had developed a relationship with them. They got to know us, like us, and trust us, which is always the trifecta of getting business. Even today, even with the internet, you still have to know, like, and trust the people you're doing business with.
True. But where did you get the machines from? With what to print on T-shirts and shirts? There must
So
have been some investments involved as well. Where did you get the money?
there was. So in the very beginning, when we first started, we obtained a whole screen print shop set up from a gentleman that my dad had seen him post a flyer on the bulletin board at work that said he was selling it. This gentleman happened to print T-shirts for a motorcycle club, and he was just tired of doing it. So he had the press, he had the screen making equipment, he had everything. And so he just sold it pretty much turnkey to us. My husband bought a book that explained how to screen print, how to make screens. You know, you couldn't go to the internet then, you opened books. You know, but he's a smart man. And because he's an artist and he had gone to art school, it's what his degree is, in illustration. One of the classes he had taken in college was screen printing. So he wasn't completely unfamiliar with the concept. He just wasn't experienced with it. Obviously, very quickly, he learned how to do that and how to do it well, and got better and better over the years. And for a time, we were hiring homeschool kids to come in and print for us. And he was just overseeing the shop because we were a homeschooling family too. Back before anybody even thought of this, we were a work from home homeschooling family.
Wow.
That was just how it worked for us. So yeah, after
Building a business besides that, that's crazy.
Yes, that's a good word for it. And I always said I was a crazy homeschooling mom.
Wow. But what was the lows and the highs? It wasn't all butterflies, I can imagine.
Oh no, not at all. So couple of low points would be in 2008, there was a big economic downturn and we lost half of our revenue within a year. We never really recovered that revenue level. Part of it was because I was also much more involved with older kids at that point in my life, and I put family first. So I was more or less content with, we'll do enough to pay the bills, but I'm not going to worry about it to the extent that I would ignore the needs of my children, who were teens at that time and, needed me to be involved in what they were doing and play taxi. As a mom at that age, you're running them everywhere. And then the second big hit was during the pandemic, which we actually weathered a little bit better because we had expanded our services. We weren't just dependent on promotional products at that point. We had website clients and marketing clients who were on retainer, and they did not pull back from paying their retainer during the pandemic. Well, I mean, the promo business just flatlined. Nobody was buying t-shirts or having events or promoting their business with product at that point. So that year, particularly 2020, we sold almost nothing, but we had our website clients that helped sustain us. And then our state in particular allowed sole proprietors like me to apply for unemployment insurance to support them during the pandemic. So that was also an assistance. One of the other big learning experience I definitely want to share is you have to know how to handle money in a business. I didn't for probably close on 15 years. If you've ever heard the phrase, rob Peter to pay Paul with financials in a business, there's money here. Oh, good, let's use it. We'll pay for these things, even if it's just groceries. And then the bill from the supplier comes in and you go, oops, now I don't have enough money to pay the supplier. Okay, well, I'll take it from this and somehow we'll do that. Well, this resulted in an ongoing cycle of debt, because it was like, we don't have enough, but the bills do. We'll have to pay it on the credit card. And we would do this over and over again, and we could never get ahead until I heard about Profit First, written by Mike Michalovicz, which I can't endorse heavily enough. It completely changed our lives. It started with us taking something called Financial Peace University, which is by Dave Ramsey. And it's a good program when you have a steady paycheck. It's much harder to do when you're running your own business, and some months you're making big bucks and other months you make almost nothing. It's very hard to budget when it's that unequal. And many small businesses like ours are seasonal. So we have times of year where we're just crushing it and making all kinds of money. And then other months where we make, we actually work in the negative. And that's just the nature of the business. If you don't understand how money works, you aren't prepared to handle that. You just rejoice in those big times and you spend, and you don't set aside like you should for the slump times. That was a lesson I wish I had learned much earlier. Well, Profit First began to teach this to me because it took that Financial Peace University training that Dave Ramsey teaches and applies it to how you do it in business, which is to use percentages. And ever since I started doing that, within a year, I got rid of most of our debt. We pay all our bills on time. My credit score is way high, and I would never, ever handle my money any other way now. And I teach it to people. I actually have a little workbook, and in an hour, I could teach you this system. I taught it to a gal in New York who was way in debt, way more than we were, and saw no way out. And I taught her this system. And a month later, I got a message from her. I just did my Profit First system for my bills, and I loved paying my bills for the first time. Like, who says they love paying their bills, right? But that's how much of a game changer it is once you understand this. And it's not magic. It's just understanding how money works. And one of the key points of this was understanding that when you get paid for your business, not all of that money is yours. Some of it belongs to other people. Like in my case, if I'm selling t-shirts, some of that money belongs to the place where I bought the t-shirts. I can't touch it. If I do, I'm stealing from myself. So now I understand that. And when I do my finances once a month, I take all the money that's owed to vendors and just take it away from myself first. I don't touch any money until I've paid my vendors, because it's not mine. And I did that for so many years where I didn't understand that. And I would just use the money when we got paid and not allocate that vendor money. So that's a huge, huge important lesson. Anyone selling, particularly product, but even if you're a service provider business, you still have overhead. You're buying tech, you're paying probably for a website or hosting or something. Like, you still have overhead. So when you get revenue and you have to bank money to pay those bills because you know they're coming. That was Dave Ramsey's big point all the time, is like, you know, you're going to buy tires for your car. One day you're going to need a new roof on your house. Like, you know, these things are down the road. If you don't prepare for them, you have no choice but debt when they happen. Whereas if you build and build and build and build in funds in a safe place leading up to it, then when those things come in, you don't have to pay them on credit card because you're prepared. I love to brag about my son. I taught him this. He's married. I didn't want my kids living in what we lived through. So I explained it. Basically, it's the old school bucket system, right? You allocate funds to different places and you leave them there till you need them. Well, he was driving our very old vehicle that we had given him outside of college, and he was going to drive it till it wasn't worth anything, and the repair would cost more than it was worth. So that day came, but when it did, he had been saving so much so he was able to go out and pay cash for his next vehicle, and it was not a small amount of money. So proud of him for understanding that lesson. Still better than his mom, honestly, still better than me. He really absorbed it. Those kids should never be in debt other than a mortgage on a house, which, you know, nobody saves up that much to wait to buy a house, but that's an asset. So it's not hurting him to have that. But staying out of debt as a business owner and bootstrapping and only paying as you go. You were asking about some of the other lessons. When we expanded into embroidery, we wanted to get a machine to do it in-house. Well, they're pretty expensive. So what we did was we waited till we knew we had a certain number of embroidery jobs coming in, and we calculated what our profit was going to be on them. And we used that to cover half the cost. We couldn't have enough to do the whole thing, but half the cost of buying the machine. And then every embroidery job after that, we just totally allocated all that profit back to paying off the rest of the machine. So within a year, we owned it. Whereas, you know, what is it, 5-6 years usually before you can pay off a piece of equipment like that, especially if it's expensive. So I wish somebody had taught me all of this when we got started. And that's the danger of starting as a teacher and an artist with no background. You don't know these things. You have to find them out as you go along. So I hope whoever listens and watches this, that this is beneficial to you up front, that the money piece of it is so important when you're getting started. You need to know how money works.
Well, yes. And I had this question in the back of my head, that when you came as a teacher and he as an artist, where did you find out about all these skills, about these books? Did you have a network? You mentioned Chamber of Commerce, or where did you find this information? Did you just read books, or was this the network that helped you, or where?
Books for sure. And also my husband had gone to the community college near us, and I think they had a workshop or something. It's been long enough, I don't remember the exact details of it, but they taught him how to write a business plan and explained the very basics of how things work. Other than that, most of what we learned was either through the accountant. We did start with an accountant from day one because we knew we didn't know what we were doing. She explained the simplest accounting system, which is still around today, which is called a DOMS book, which is just simply money in, money out. That's it. That's all you have to worry about. And you give the DOMS book to the accountant at the end of the year, and she does the taxes. It's super easy. So she would answer a lot of questions for us, and then talking to other business owners, right? And learning from them about what do you know. And because I did have the background in Tupperware, I did come with a little bit of knowledge into this as far as at least the sales part of it. I knew how to go out and do sales. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just trial and error, making mistakes, learning from mistakes. And then, I mean, thankfully and not thankfully, the internet came along. The internet also brought us a lot more competition, which was, made it more difficult to retain our revenue levels because now we were competing against online businesses. But it also gave us education. And, that's how we got into websites. My husband took 100+ hours. I don't even know, maybe it's 150 hours now on WordPress to become a website designer and developer. He brought his art skills into the design side of it. And then the development part it's what he spent all that time training on, learning how things worked and how to construct and maintain websites. And I think he trains every week still. So you can teach yourself to do anything today if you work hard enough at it. LinkedIn itself has a learning platform. It used to be called lynda.com. Then LinkedIn bought it and now it's part of their platform. But that's pretty much where he's taken almost all of his training. So I think you have to have a paid version of LinkedIn to access it, is my recall on that. But yeah, if you want to learn something today, YouTube will teach you anything you want to know. There are workshops and courses galore on the web. If you can get a reference to someone that is knowledgeable and trustworthy. That's where I've done a lot of learning over the past probably 5 years, particularly with the business advising. Selling products and selling services are completely different things from a sales marketing standpoint. I didn't understand that when I started. I do now, because I've been training under some experts that explain how you market a service business.
But after all these years, you have been in this business now for 30 years, more than 30 years, from 1991. Where is your business now? How has it developed? What do you do now?
We are still doing, so we did screen printing probably for the first 5 to 7 years only. And then people started asking us about, well, can you embroider things? So we found a contractor first, and she was doing work for us, but it was growing so much, she couldn't keep up with us. That's when we decided, okay, we need to get our own equipment so we can do it in-house ourselves. And we started doing that. But at the same time, we also met a much larger contractor. So when we had big orders, we would just send that to them. Which is a balance that we still use today. We'll run small orders in-house, particularly if they're time sensitive, because we can do them faster. But bigger or more difficult work, we send out to contractors. We screen printed in-house for probably the first 15 or so years. And then at one point, my husband said, I'm tired of pushing a squeegee. And so that's the rubber tipped bar that you push the ink with when you're actually manually screen printing. It was still in our house at that point. So we started realizing, okay, maybe there's some other options we could explore here. It might have even been 20 years. We went quite some time with it in our basement. It survived a move. We went from a smaller house to a house we built outside of town. But it was still in the basement. And we started out home-based. We are still home-based, and it's by choice at this point, because we don't see the point in paying for rent for an office somewhere, because we've now outsourced our printing as well. So if we're not doing anything, internally that can't be done under our own roof, then it doesn't make sense to rent an office. That's another good hack for those starting a new business, is just home-based businesses are much more common today, and they don't get the disrespect that we used to face. I think it was UPS used to give us the hardest time about the fact that they just weren't helping us. I'm like, you are delivering to us 3 or 4 times a week. Doesn't matter. You're home-based. What difference does that make? You're home-based. They could never give me a good answer to it, but we got bias because of having a home-based business. Today, that's not the case, because so many businesses that are home-based, you can't really play that game anymore. I mean, they can ding you on shipping because you're residential, because they've got the power to do that, because where else are you going to ship, right? But I forget where else I was going with that.
Yeah, and I think
I get involved in my own stories.
Yeah, and the pandemic played a big role in that as well, I think, to normalize more of this home officing and doing from home.
For sure.
Was
For
the
sure.
upside of the pandemic times. But how do you see, are today's clients the same as you thought in the beginning that they're gonna be?
No, things have changed a lot. And part of that was bringing on the internet. Before, like I said, you would run advertisements in newspapers, in phone books. You would go out and meet and greet, and your work was much more local. Today, my better clients aren't anywhere near me. I work nationally, which I couldn't have done as easily. I mean, I could have sent mail items to people and tried to meet people in distant cities, but that's a lot more work, especially when you are working from home and homeschooling. So, I did what I could with what I had. But today the internet is such a game changer in that respect. I can meet people like you from all over the world and do business with you, even though you're not right up the street like my original screen print clients were. It used to be, there were a couple of clients, I would just walk in the door and start talking with them. Hi, how you doing? And I would walk out the door with an order. And that was how you did business. Today, not so much. And then that same account, which we by all rights should still have, has changed generations of ownership. When it did, they went to their friend. We did nothing wrong. We had served them well for decades, but that was dad's vendor. And this guy over here is our friend. So we're going to give him the work. So I see a change in loyalty. It's much harder to find loyalty in our clients. Some do. Some would never consider going anywhere else. But many are either after whatever the cheapest price is, and I am not. I will never be the cheapest price. I am not in the race to the bottom because I deliver way too much quality and service to give you a cheap price on top of that. And so I look for the clients that want that. So we have changed our business model to be what I call concierge level, meaning we'll do all the work. We're giving white glove level attention to all our clients. And it means looking for a different set of clients, but it works. I'm doing 1,136 shirts and jackets for a big company right now for their Christmas gift to all their employees because I'm doing hours and hours and hours of work to do it. And I built them a store online, so I'm bringing a lot more to the table. So I look for more clients like that who want me to do the work for them, where they can just sit back and do their jobs and not do what I'm supposed to do. See, that's the kicker in the promo world, actually. A lot of people want to just go on the internet, buy their stuff and be done. Well, that's fine if you don't care what your stuff is or what it accomplishes. But if you want stuff that's actually going to do something for you and be a return on your investment, that's when you need an expert by your side. I have a really fun example. So out in the West, in the US, in a state called Utah, they're having drought issues, like extreme. And so they're actually encouraging people not to grow grass. And they did a really fun ad campaign called Grass Doesn't Belong Everywhere. And they've got these 15-second videos of grass growing in the most ridiculous places, like on the windshield of a bus and on some guy's back and in a chair in a movie theater. And, it's hysterical. And one of the people involved in it said, hey, we've got a trade show coming up. We want to give some things out. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. I found do you know what a can cooler is? Keeps your can or your bottle from sweating. And keeps it cold. Mm-hmm. Normally they're made out of like foam. I found one made out of grass. I know. Grass doesn't belong everywhere. It doesn't belong on a can cooler. So it was like the perfect thing to do. And so we put a logo on that. And then I got socks because grass doesn't belong on your feet either. But we did a custom print on socks. And I asked him later, he's like, they were the hit of the show. So, when you go to someone like me with the level of expertise that I have in what I'm doing, you get something that gets results. So it's important, no matter what business you're running, to A, be the expert for your clients, but also B, look for the experts to work with to grow your business better. Make sure they really do know what they're doing. Don't go cheap. One more pitch in for using promo as well, and then I'll leave that alone. If you go cheap, and I've had people try to do this with me, they say, I want the cheapest pen you can get. I said, well, then you're not buying it from me. And why not? I said, what are people going to see when they're throwing your cheap pen in the trash? They're going to see your logo. And what is that going to say about your business when they're throwing your cheap junk in the trash? Oh, so, but people who want to do it all for themselves on the internet, they just don't know these things because they don't have the experience that I do. So experience and expertise when you're in business and who you're working with for whatever reason, whether they're building you a website, doing your promos, telling you about your financials, whether they're an accountant, whatever. you've got to really do your homework and make sure you're choosing carefully who you're working with, because it will affect your business in the long run if you don't choose wisely.
Yes, so important. Wow. You have such so much experience. It's so nice to listen to you because you have come through of every step of the business. You have built two businesses. You have um, helped to build other businesses. So it's I hear the wisdom in everything that you say. It's so nice to hear. But I think the main question, especially for you, who was homeschooling, building a business alongside that, um, learning about everything on the way, on the go. How did you manage, or how are you managing your business right now? Because I think it's the question for every solo business owner, how to manage it all and what to prioritize. So how do you do that?
That is an excellent question. And it's one you never stop asking yourself. Um, I have a business coach, and one of the things she had me write down before I make decisions about should I spend my time and energy and resources on something is, will this lead me towards my goals for the business, and will it make money? And if it's just a distraction, and there's plenty of them out there, then the answer is no, and I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't go play with that tech tool, or I can't waste time on Facebook. And that it's not an easy question to answer, because it's a different answer depending on who you are and what you're doing. So I'll give you one example. When you're trying to decide how to spend your time on your marketing, there's lots of social media platforms, there's websites, there's billboards, there's radio ads, like there's all different places that you could spend your time and energy marketing your business, but not all of them are going to work for you. So how do you decide? And that circles back to one key question that I teach on my clients, which is, where are your prospects? Are they people who go on Facebook all the time? Well, then you probably want to run Facebook ads. Or are you working B2B? Well, then you need a solid presence on LinkedIn. And everyone needs to blog at least a little bit on their websites, especially today with artificial intelligence coming in and all these AI tools, and Google changing up the way their algorithm's going to work with their AI. It's changing everything we know and do. And it's more important than ever to have your website speak your wisdom into the world, so that when people are looking and asking questions about whatever your area of expertise is, that your blog posts are some of the things that are being found, and your own original content. Do not let AI write it. AI can draft it. You want to try GPT, go ahead. I do it too. But you have to take that as a first draft and really turn it into your own work before you go and publish it anywhere. So marketing is one of those places where every business is going to have to spend time, because of the way everything is changing. Some careers are going to see a massive shift. There'll probably be less demand for copywriters and graphic artists, because you'll be able to do it all with AI. So having the flexibility to pivot and reset priorities in your business is key. Use the tools, just don't abuse them. Make sure it's still you being out there presenting your face to the world. And as far as how you spend your time, just customer service will always be number one. If you don't take care of your prospects and your customers, you won't have a business. So always making sure you're putting them first, always making sure the decisions you're making for how you spend your time in your day are geared towards taking care of your customers and taking care of the bottom line. Both of those, that has to rule out other things. As far as being a homeschooling work from home mom, that took some trial and error. When they were little, it wasn't so bad, but as the business got busier and we added a third child to the mix, it became obvious there was just no way I was going to be able to do it on my own. And that's where I brought in some homeschool girls who helped me with reading history, for example, to my older kids, having my mom come in watching my youngest so that I could actually work. So leverage your community for support if you're doing that. And I know there are moms who are trying to do this. They're trying to run a business and have a family. It can be done. You won't sleep as much and you will be pretty stressed. But, if you keep family first, keep customers second, don't forget your spouse. You want that spouse at the end of all of this. I'm approaching the empty nester years, and I could have done a better job with that. So I'm a big proponent of reminding people it's not just you in this world. If you're married, keep that relationship healthy too. Make sure you take time out for that, and take time for yourself. I was really bad about that. I mean, the word self-care is really huge nowadays. I didn't even know that was a thing. So it didn't do very much for myself over the years, but it does help to take a half day here or a whole day there and just sit and think and let your brain stew on everything that is going on. You'll come up with new ideas. You'll get innovative with your business. If you have a team, you take a day and do that, right? You take a day off from running the business to work on the business, set goals, figure out the steps you need to get there, have a roadmap to follow, and then make sure all your decision making lines up with your roadmap. That's the short answer of what would take a very long time to do in detail with someone. I hope that helps.
Yeah, we have to do more of this call so we can delve into detail of everything that you
Right?
said. But how does your day look like today? How is your work day, and where do you work? Do you work from home now still?
Mhm. So this is my home office that you see here. Some of the more exciting things I've done, I have to do this,
Of
is
course.
I became an author this year. I wrote a chapter in the most amazing marketing book ever as part of the Rise community by Mark Schaefer. And that was very exciting because I've actually wanted to be an author for a long time. And it's motivated me to write my own book. We started this a year ago. So it's time to, 2024. I got to make this happen.
Yes.
But my day is different now. Without children at home, I'm working on taking care of all my customers and their orders. I work on our financials still. That's still my responsibility to handle that. And I just did that this week. But that's, only basically a couple days a month of the way with the system I run with Profit First. I have a lot of Zoom meetings like this to meet people and to do business advising, because the client I mentioned that went to Italy was from Texas and I'm in New Jersey. So we had to do it over Zoom. I also spend some time engaging on LinkedIn because I sell more business to business. So I try to keep an active presence over there and try to be found by people who are maybe buyers for their bigger companies, because that's my target. But it varies. I don't have a set. It's interesting. It really shouldn't. As a school teacher, I knew the very first thing at 8 o'clock was math. And then that was followed at 9 o'clock by reading. And I went through the day and everything was timed out on a schedule. And you would think I would carry that over, especially as a mom and a homeschooling mom, when I did have a schedule then too. But I've become a lot more relaxed about it. And I don't say that as a good thing, honestly. I think time blocking is a good tool and useful, and makes sure that you're more productive with your time. I need to do more of that, and hope that 2024 I can really discipline myself to do more of that. Self-discipline is really critical to growing a business. If you're going to set goals and you have a roadmap to follow, but you don't follow it because no one's holding you accountable, then what's the point? You're not going to grow the business the way you want, because you can't just slide along and be reactive to whatever happens. Oh, an order came, let's take care of the order. And that's it, right? You need to be proactive and say, great, an order came in, we're going to handle that. But at the same time, let's get this marketing piece out. Let's get that email newsletter out the door. You have to do both. And it seems some people, and I'll classify myself in this, are better at one than the other. Some days I'm really good at being proactive, but for the most part, I live too much in the reactive space, just handling what's in front of me. If you're the owner of a business, you really shouldn't be doing that anyway. You should be running the business, not doing all the parts of the business. And that is a big mistake that we made early on in our business that I would also like to share. We should have hired people sooner to help in the office. I shouldn't have been doing it myself for the last 30 years. I still do not have an assistant. And that has set us back. And it's fear of the salary. What if we don't make enough money? What if we can't pay them? Then what do we do? Do we go into debt to pay them? How do we pay our bills if we're paying them and we're not paying ourselves? So I get it. It's a big, scary question. The answer I give to my clients, and I've told myself, and if our revenue picks up, like we've got this big order we're doing right now, if that becomes a more consistent thing, what you do is you start paying the salary that you would pay this person to yourself to a bank account first. I have an account called Profit First that's explicitly for this kind of thing. You pay the money into that account every month, and you begin to see, can you handle it? Can your budget handle paying a salary to someone? And if you're able to do it month after month, 4-6 months, then yes, you're ready to hire someone. And guess what? You have 6 months worth of salary in the bank ready. So even if you have a down month, you've already covered that salary. So that's something, again, I wish I had learned back when we were really busy, that I had understood that. Because if I had had a qualified person in my office, I tried a couple, they didn't work out very well. If I had had a qualified person as an assistant, I would probably still have that person with me today, and we'd be further along in our business growth than we are. So I'm kind of the poster child for how to do everything wrong. I know what to do right now, and I can tell you to save you, but I didn't learn it in much time for myself.
Yeah, and I think we have to do it wrong in order to learn. You can't. Maybe some of us do. They just like born and be perfect, but that's not the case for most of us. Yeah.
Right.
I had a question in the back of my head, but it was about the network. So you mentioned earlier as well that you started to talk with other business owners, and that you now have outsourced a couple of things to others. Where did you find these people? Where did you find this network? You said that you were in Tupperware, and you definitely from there, a couple of people, and in the Chamber of Commerce. But has there been any other, and how do you see network benefiting your business?
Well, I would say in the early days, part of it was we learned about magazines for our industry, and we started reading those. And of course, that tells you about things like trade shows and suppliers. And so we've got a lot of information in the early days from that. And then we went to trade shows faithfully. I heartily endorse attending trade shows, especially if you're early in the days of your business, because there's so much information to learn there. Every supplier that's got a booth there wants to teach you what they do, which by default helps you to grow your business in that industry. So like in our case, we went to the Imprinted Sportswear show, and we learned about suppliers that sold the garments we needed to print. I mean, in the beginning, we didn't know where to buy t-shirts wholesale. I didn't even know the word wholesale. I mean, we started really at ground zero. So we went to the trade show. I was like, oh, well, you're just up there in Philadelphia near us, so we'll get t-shirts from you. Oh, look, there's another one. Oh, you guys are right almost across the street from each other. Cool. We got two places right close. And we would even go up and pick up. We didn't even use UPS because we were saving money. Y'all need to evaluate what saving money really looks like. Spending 2.5 hours to go pick up shirts means you're spending gas and whatever your time is worth, which is way more than you think, but you learn. And after a while we realize, well, that's silly. We'll just let UPS bring those boxes to us. It's only one more day. So trade shows were a huge way for us to network and get to know more of our industry and who we needed to do business with. And the sales reps got to know us. Sales reps would call us and say, I want to tell you about the company. And that continued as we moved into the promotional products world. We went to a promotional products show in Atlantic City. And I mean, talk about eye-opening. Wow, look at all these people selling all these different products we didn't even know existed. At one point, and it's still true today, there's literally over 1 million different products that you can brand. It's impossible to even imagine selling that many things. But, so you learn to specialize too. Well, just because there's 1 million products doesn't mean I have to sell 1 million products. I can choose this group, like maybe, and I love tech, maybe I'm going to sell just a bunch of tech, and I'm going to be known as a specialist in the promotional products market for selling tech. We were already known for apparel because we'd been screen printing and embroidering for years before we started selling other products. But we also met a trainer there and ended up joining his group and buying all of his materials that cut our learning curve coming into that industry dramatically. I got hooked up with some really smart people who knew how to do what I was just starting to do, and learned very, very quickly the best way to do it rather than the trial and error way to do it. So that network I'm still in today, and it is still valuable and bringing lots of benefits to us. Since then, and since the internet and particularly the pandemic, I'm in 4 or 5 other groups that are all online. I even run my own mastermind on Tuesday mornings with a small group of women business owners. I want to do more of that as part of Sandee Solves. I call them CEO councils because I want to help women business owners think like a CEO, which means you're not getting your hands dirty doing all the stuff. You're running the business and other people are doing the stuff. You stay in your zone of genius. Like for me, that would mean having somebody else doing the marketing for Sandee Solves, so I could just do the business advising, right? So understanding where you should best be in your space. So all of these groups that I'm in, one of them is a promotional products group. One of them is on LinkedIn. One of them is, of course, Pat Flynn's SPI Pro, which has been a fantastic group. And then this group that I wrote the book with, Rise, by Mark Schaefer, which is all about marketing. It's just a big marketing group of people from all over the world. Those groups are pretty priceless. You make good connections with people. Rise has turned into 2 new clients for me so far. Plus, obviously, I became a published author, which was huge. SPI Pro has yielded some Sandee Solves clients over the years. The LinkedIn group, not so much, but it's helpful to stay on top of what's going on. So I continue to use LinkedIn to its best capacity. So that's more of a situation maybe where I'm taking more from it than I'm giving. I try to be a giver in these networks. If you want people to help you and give information to you and support you, you have to be a giver. Those who give will find people will give back. And it will turn into work. It will turn into connections, collaborations that you can't even imagine. I mean, that's how we got connected, right? You came into Pro, you introduced yourself. I thought it was neat. We met, and now here we are talking.
Yeah. So it's wonderful. It's so important to be open, I think, as well, to have these conversations, to not think about think less of yourself than others around you. Actually, it's a big part of it, of that as well. But we talked a little bit about the balance as well between business and your normal life. How what are you doing to keep the balance?
Well, when I'm doing it well, I do a 4-day work week. I work very hard Monday through Thursday, and particularly in the summers, I take off Fridays. And Saturdays is pretty much work around the house day, get the laundry done, clean the house, that sort of thing. And Sunday's the Lord's Day, so I'm off. I don't work Sundays at all. When things are a little crazy busier, Fridays can sometimes get swept into the week, but that's okay. You know, that's a choice I get to make. And as business owners and entrepreneurs, that is our choice, how much time we spend in our business. The beauty of it is it also means I could do things like my sister moved from Florida to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina a month and a half ago. I took off and flew down to help her do that. So I took off from my own business for about 4 days. Now I say take off. I did take my laptop with me and I checked on my emails, but I might have worked an hour a day instead of a whole full work day. And I was very there and present with my sister to help her through her move. So that's the privilege of owning the schedule. You don't have to go ask a boss for time off. You just decide because you are the boss. And that's how I keep balance. When we wrote this book, Mark is in Tennessee, which is about, what did I calculate? 13 hours maybe from where I live. And I had another event actually happening for a nonprofit that I'm on in Huntsville, Alabama, which is, they're close enough. Let's just say it that way. So I did a road trip and I spent a couple days driving to my friends who lived in a different part of Tennessee, and then spent the weekend in Huntsville for the benefit concert we were putting on. And I was back to Tennessee, and I did work a day or two there waiting for the book launch party. Took another day, went off, did the book launch party, came back to my friends in Tennessee and rerouted myself back to New Jersey. So I was gone about 10 days, you know, and I worked when I wanted and where I wanted. And that is another intentional thing I did. That's, again, being home-based, that really frees me up to work wherever I want. And I was very intentional about that about 6 years ago. I use an app called Evernote, and I built the whole business into it. And knowing that anywhere I had an internet connection, I could work. And that way I could travel a little if I wanted. And I have done that. So I've created the lifestyle that I want, working the days and times that I want. And when I need to, I take off and go and do things for myself. And that's my balance.
Wow. So nice. And it is all in our hands to make our lives the way we want to do. And the business side brings us this opportunity. That's really nice. So where now? You have done it all. It seems. Where are you headed? What are the next steps for you?
That's a fair question. What I'm seeing sort of happen, a little shift in the Sandee Solves, maybe a little more niching down into my promo industry in a different sense, where I, for example, have been asked to collaborate with someone who serves the food and beverage packaging industry. That's the space he works in. And he says, I was thinking about running a webinar called To Merch or Not to Merch. And merch is a slang for promotional products. And he said, what would you think about coming in and doing that with me? So that got me thinking, well, it's not just a yes or no question. It's more like, yes, everyone needs to merge for their business. But the real question is when. When do you do it? How do you do it? What's the best way to get a return on your money? That's the piece no one knows. So I had the opportunity with Mark Schaefer to take his speaking class, which starts at the end of January. So I'll be doing that. And I'll be looking to get out and speak more to industry groups like that, whether I go in person or do it over virtual. But I really am kind of passionate about using merchandise and promotional products correctly, because too many people are selling junk and it just goes to the landfill. And there's no need for that. If you don't have a big budget, that's fine. There are things you can give that are still worth having. I mean, this is, I'll give Pat Flynn's example. He sent out decals for us that we could put on, that's his signature in the middle, that we could put on our laptops. That's very inexpensive, but it's branding and promoting. And if you're already a Pat Flynn fan, you're going to be happy to put that on your laptop. I haven't got around to doing it yet. So I think that's could be a merging of DNS Designs with Sandee Solves, where I'll be doing consulting and coaching to maybe different groups that want to learn about how to do promotional products well, because it's really important and it's a growing theme in our industry as well. So as a teacher, I would love to go out and teach.
Yeah. So if I want to connect with you and hear more about how you're doing and how is this business doing, or if I want to do business with you, where can I find the information about you and your business?
The easiest way is probably to go to my websites. So for the promotional products business, that would be dsdesigns.com, and that's with the and spelled out. To reach me more directly, and the new business would be just like it says on the wall, sandeesolves.com, which will point you to Sandee Rodriquez, which is harder to spell. So I just tell people go to sandeesolves.com, and that's Sandee with 2 E's, which is, I know, a fun and unusual spelling that my mother graced me with at birth, but I embrace it. I like my E's. And you can use the contact forms on there, and I will get back to you. That's probably the easiest way.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
I mean, I love helping people. I am happy to connect with anyone who sees this video who just wants to ask one question. They've got one burning question for their business. I have an initial consult with me that's free for 30 minutes. It's called Fix One Problem. And if you go to my LinkedIn profile, which is at Sandee Rodriquez, which is Rodriguez. There's a link right on there that you can book me for 30 minutes and we'll just tackle one problem that's bugging you. And if you like how I work with you to fix that problem, then we can maybe set something up to work on longer term to help you achieve your goals, increase your profitability, get back your time, improve your productivity, all the things. That's what I do.
I'm gonna go and book that 30 minutes right now because it has been so nice speaking to you. Just so warm and open and heart to heart. I really feel that you want to help. That this teacher in you lives in there. You are a natural. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And I hope everything works out fine and you still live the life that you want to live and get to help as many business owners that you can in your way. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.